स्टूडेंट्स बात चल रही है टाइम डिवीजन मल्टीप्लेक्सिंग की। अब तक जितने भी टाइम डिवीजन मल्टीप्लेक्सिंग की एग्जांपल्स को हमने स्टडी किया, वी सॉ दैट द इनपुट डेटा रेट फॉर ऑल द लाइंस वाज एग्जैक्टली द सेम. Now students, when we have a disparity in the input data rates, for example, where the input data rates for some of the lines are not the same as the other lines, then in order to deal with that using time division multiplexing, we use three distinct techniques or a combination of these three techniques. So students, before we finish this topic, let's go and let's try to look at what those techniques are. Students, the first technique that we're going to be using is multi-level multiplexing. Students, multi-level multiplexing is a technique used when the data rate of the input line is a multiple of others. Students, गौर कीजिएगा कि we have got 20 kilobits per second and 20 kilobits per second. We have got two lines out here, but because 20 is a multiple of 40. As soon as we find out that we have got an input line which is different, which has got a different data rate than the other lines, but the data rate is a multiple of the other lines, we can employ multi-level multiplexing. What we have done in this case is we combine the two inputs which are 20 kilobits each, and we multiplex them together to provide a data rate that is equal to the last three. So essentially, before going into the mux, the second level of mux, we have got a 40 kilobits per second line. This one is 40 kbps as well. Then we have got a 40 kbps third link, and then we have got a 40 kbps fourth link as well. So our data rates are now exactly the same, and therefore we get an output of 160 kilobits per second. Students, second technique is called multiple slot allocation, and students, this is used when we have got the same thing, 25 kilobits per second, 25 kilobits per second, and what you see is that in this particular case we have got one line which is 50 kilobits per second. So sometimes instead of multi-level multiplexing, it is more efficient to allot more than one slot in a frame to the single input line. So what we do is we break up this 50 kilobits per second using our demux into two lines, two input lines of 25 kilobits per second each. तो स्टूडेंट्स याद कीजिएगा, सिंक्रोनस TDM के कॉन्सेप्ट को यूज करते हुए we have got, या फिर remember the interleaving part as well, we have got in every frame we will have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 time slots, but as you can see, one line will have 2 time slots sitting in every single frame. So the input with a 50 kilohertz data rate has 2 time slots in each frame, and we come up with an output data rate of 125 kilobits per second. Students, third technique is called pulse stuffing. Students, this is used when you get the input data rates which are not exact integers. So in this particular case, you have got a 46 kilobits per second line, and we use this technique which is called as pulse stuffing. It is also called as bit padding. So we are essentially inserting bits, or it's also called as bit stuffing. So students, all that we are doing in this particular case is that we take the highest input data rate, and the highest input data rate in this particular case, for example, is 50 kilobits per second, and then we add dummy bits. So this process out here is the addition of dummy bits to make sure that we have got 50 kilobits per second input lines with equal data rates out here. So students, ये तीन techniques हमारे पास ऐसी हैं using which we can actually have the input lines which has got exactly equal data rates, and therefore we can employ time division multiplexing even if the data rates of these input lines are not the same.